All right, y'all. This is episode 1 of the Do It Again But Better podcast, the first flow arts podcast on YouTube. I'm here with Kaden Hurst and Willow Solow, the 2 legendary poi spinners from the video Shirts on Trees and many, many more. What's up, y'all? How's it going?
Dude.
So good. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm really stoked to be doing
this. I miss
this.
building forts as a kid so much. Oh, this was so much fun.
Yeah. Where are we right now? Where do we...
We're in Portland, Oregon. This is where Kaden and I live here. This is our upstairs room.
Yeah.
And this is the room where Kaden teaches music lessons. And we've decked this whole thing out with blankets for quality audio for your listening enjoyment.
Yeah. Most precisely, we're in a blanket fort in our attic right now.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Yeah.
Awesome. How long have you been teaching music?
I've teaching music for 4 years now, I guess. I went and did a music degree in college. So I've been doing that. I have a bunch of private students. I teach workshops and that kind of thing around here too.
That's your
full-time? That and performing. Yeah, so I'm on the road, gigging around a lot too.
That's
He's
awesome.
in a band. It's really, really good. It's called Never Come
Talking
Down.
about poi now.
No, what?
Plug
the band.
Poi
Do
workshop.
you want to keep
Cool.
those lives separate?
Plug the band.
Okay, if Chris wants me to plug the band, I'll plug the band.
Yeah.
The band is called Never Come Down. It's like contemporary bluegrass music, all original stuff. Based out of Portland, Oregon, but we're all up and down West Coast in Colorado. So, nevercomedowndband.com if you want to say hi.
You guys live all over?
We all live in Portland, but that's where we're touring around right now.
They tour everywhere. They won the Band of the Year competition at Rocky Grass in Colorado, which is a huge deal. It's like they're going big time. I'm excited.
Doing the thing.
I don't have to be humble about it.
I
not in the band.
I do. I would be a jerk if I was not humble about it right now.
Well, awesome. That's awesome. What do you do for a living, Willow?
I'm a web designer and a photographer. So I'm freelance and I work for myself at home, building websites for people and doing kind of web consultant sort of stuff. So people have a small business or they are a small business and they want to build a website or like get their whole digital marketing on the web sort of infrastructure set up, then I'll help them do that. Yeah. And photography.
Do you guys like having a non-flow arts as your main source of income? Like not spinning poi or performing? I guess it's still performing, but it's not poi spinning, I guess. I
mean, it's definitely more reliable. Like even being in like other niche forms of art and performance art, the amount of infrastructure available to like someone who's playing music, in my case, versus flow arts or juggling stuff is just like night and day between them. It's like I can contact a venue in any city in the country and have a shot at booking a show there. Whereas like if you looked at trying to do the same kind of thing with like performing or teaching flow arts, I feel like the people that I know that do that or that try to do that have a way harder time of doing it and have to do a lot more legwork, like building their brand up beforehand. Sure. So yeah, I definitely do. It also means that poi can just be poi and not poi plus accounting.
For sure.
Just less
definitely. I agree.
If you're listening to this and you're a flow artist, we're probably going to come up to this a bunch of times as we chat for this episode, but that's we have our growing pains in front of us as, so-called flow artists or jugglers, object manipulators. We have a small niche sort of thing that we're doing, and our market, if you're trying to make a business out of it and trying to build a living off of it, I think is really hard. So that's why I have the utmost respect for the people who have persevered and done that. I think you're
like
the
Chris.
Prime example.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, super motivated, starting a podcast, of course, and I was there watching you starting your business from the beginning, selling that first set of contact poi. Now, here we go.
That's crazy.
Did it. You grew your own market, and that's really something to be proud of, I think.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, good job.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
There are more people than us just paying attention to that aspect of it, too. I love getting hyped about your work and all the things you're doing to grow the community. And, it's awesome to know as well that by growing your business, you're growing also the thing that we all care about. You're very much like the picture perfect version of, someone who is authentic, I think, behind their business because, you're selling poi. You're also like maybe the best poi juggler in the world. That's like so
Bow
rare.
juggler.
Maybe Bo right now.
Maybe Bo right now. Yeah.
Armin, I could throw that name in there too. But they're,
Best
it's
poi juggler in America.
the fact that you're in the top like 1,000, and you're somebody who's capitalizing off of it, thinking all the time about marketing and how to make it into a viable business. Like the fact that you have both of those things means that I can like buy from you. I can invest in your business with a sense of assurance and like real heart and soul. And like I feel so good about it every time I know somebody's buying poi from you. It's like, yes, you're
That's
fueling
awesome.
the person, you're fueling the business, you're fueling the movement that I care about. You know what I mean?
That's
So,
rad.
yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you so much. That means so much, honestly. Yeah, that's awesome. Should we just get into some questions about flow arts and poi? And
Yeah, let's
dude.
do it.
when was
go
the
for it.
first time you guys saw any kind of poi, or your first memory of seeing fire poi or any kind of poi or glow string? Which one was first? What was your first experience with poi?
First experience with poi was actually at a summer camp when I was, how would I have been? Maybe like 12, I want to say. Went to summer camp in Northern California. It's an awesome little place that Willow and I both ended up actually working at later, but I went as a kid.
What's it called?
Camp Augusta, that's what it was called. It's still out there. It's still awesome. They still do a bunch of flow art stuff there. If you want a cool place to check out for seasonal work, you should go say hi to them. But yeah, well, that was just one of the activities they offered was, I think, staff spinning and poi and rope dart.
Do you remember who were like the instructors? Who was leading it?
Yes, I remember some of the people that were there, but none of them were in the poi scene necessarily. It was all people that had gotten hired by Camp Augusta and then had learned poi in order to teach it as just one of the activities,
Oh,
which was there. So it was all very, like the skill tree they had there kind of ended at like a fountain, at like 3-beat weave, reverse 3-beat weave, windmill.
what year was that?
That would have been 2007.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
There's a funny little history with summer camps and flow arts because there's Camp Augusta and, this camp that Kaden and I worked at, and like you said, totally an awesome place, and we're still pretty connected to the community. If anybody's curious about potentially working there, it's amazing, and you can just message us on Facebook about it. But, there's Camp Augusta, which does like a bunch of circus arts. It's a summer camp, and they teach a lot of stuff, including circus arts, fire spinning, and stuff like that. But then there's also this camp called Camp Winter Rainbow, where Noel Yee, Aileen Lawler, a bunch of like OG Vulcan people went to, and that's actually where they first, I think, were training a lot of their circus art stuff.
Did you go to that camp?
No, it's a camp that is similar and close by to Camp Augusta, but it's smaller. It's a little bit more niche, and it's focused only on circus.
Yeah.
It's also there in Northern California. Yeah.
That's awesome. Did you guys? Wait, did you say where you first saw poi?
Oh no. The very first time I saw poi. So I was in college, in like 2008, and
Where'd you go to college for?
I went to college for astrophysics. Oh boy, yeah. I got my degree in astrophysics in Oklahoma. I graduated in 2011, but I was still in college in 2008, and I went with my partner at the time to a bluegrass festival in Colorado called the Telluride Bluegrass Festival. It was amazing. I've always wanted to go back there. And I met this guy there who was like, I think one day I saw somebody who was just kind of flowing off in the corner to some bluegrass music. It must have been 2008, and I was like, whoa, that's cool. Whoa. Kind of like improvising with the music. That's really interesting. And I met a guy who had a pair of poi, and we were chatting, and he's like, yeah, you want to try? And I tried it, and I was like, this is dumb. This is stupid. And I like just gave it back to the guy. I'm like, never again. And then it was a couple years later that I had fallen in love with Northern California because of a trip I took to the Redwoods. Decided to work at a summer camp there. Found Camp Augusta on the web, and before heading there, they sent me a list of things like, hey, you can learn all this stuff if you want. You can get started now, and then when you come to camp for the summer, you can teach this stuff. So I went down that list, and I was like, oh, flow arts. That's like what it's. And then I was like, staff spinning and poi spinning. That's pretty cool sounding. So I tried both poi. I made a set of poi out of like tennis balls, and I put like string in them. I had no idea what I was doing. I hadn't even seen it except from a DVD that they had sent me of like a couple of people
The camp did?
Yeah, because the camp has like a server of knowledge with like how to teach stuff to the campers. So they sent me their DVD of like some files they had on that sort of activity. And I was like, okay, I'll give that a try. I tried poi and I hated it again. And I tried staff and I was like, this is so cool. And then I I started practicing staff. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be the one hobby that I just stick with forever, because I'm like a jack of all trades person. So I practiced contact staff like all summer long, and then at the end of the summer I met Kaden, and we kind of like co-counseled a cabin. And he was like, I can tell you like spinning and you really are into staff, but I think you'd like poi more.
We had a total come to Jesus moment.
Yeah,
where I just sold Willow really hard on why poi was better.
That's awesome.
And staff.
It was cool because he was at that time. You're 16.
I was
years
16
old.
at that point. Yeah,
I was
so
like 21 or 22. We
Yeah.
sat down, and you were like, "I think you're gonna like poi more," and I'm like, "No, dude. Contact staff is the one. I chose this
The
as
one
a
true
hobby.
prop.
I'm not gonna like change on." And then you had already been spinning poi for like a few years.
Yeah, so I found it when I was like 12, 13 at that summer camp. Kind of messed with it the whole week. And then like the last day, 3-beat weave clicked for me. And then I just like dived as deep as I possibly could. Did like a big research project in middle school on it.
About poi?
About poi, yeah.
That's
The
rad.
school I went to, you have this whole like 8th grade project thing. And so I like wrote a grant to get a bunch of poi to make a little poi class in my middle school. I was there. And then it basically through like 8th grade and first couple years of high school would just come home every day and just spin
That's
until I had to
awesome.
come inside
When
to
you had
eat
no
dinner.
schedule for anything else.
Yeah, exactly. When I had all my work done or whatever.
Heck
So
yeah.
by the time I met Willow and showed him the way, I
So-
was real deep in poi for sure.
So what was it that, because you didn't like poi at first, what was it that Kaden was able to show you or convince you that drew you into it?
As a jack of all trades, I was really attracted to things that I could pick up and see my own success in quickly. And poi is a little bit more finicky than staff when you first pick it up. I think the accessibility of poi it's a little bit easier. So, or of staff. So I was like, okay, staff is the one. We sat down, and I'm so grateful for this conversation actually, because I don't know how long it would take a person typically to like go down that rabbit hole and learn, tech on their own, because it must take a long time. You have to kind of know what you're looking for, and then YouTube is going to be your resource on that, but you have to know where to go. But in our case, like he said, hey, I think you'd really like poi. That conversation was about an hour or two long conversation where we're sitting just like this on like a bunk in this cabin at this summer camp, and he's like, so I'm going to explain to you tech spinning and this thing called VTG, and it's called Vulcan Tech Gospel, and he broke down everything, and like all of timing and direction was all explained with our hands and like our fingers as we were having this conversation. So by the end of just this 1 hour, I was like, oh, okay, there are these 4 timing direction combinations.
Tog, same split, op, split, same tog, op.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And I realized, like, okay, this prop I'm really fascinated with. It's cool, and it's all in split same all the time. And this aspect of spinning, of like the timing and direction, I find really fascinating and technical. And having 2 separate props means you can alternate these timings and directions. So I was like, double staff would be even more technical in a sense, but I really like the feeling of poi when I think about this tech in my head. So yeah, I'll give poi a shot. And then by the end of like a week later, I was like, I think we watched a video.
You watched, wasn't it like Nebisol and
Yeah, Utah.
Ronan? Who was that? And
It
Utah,
was
yeah.
Utah and Thomas Johansson, Nebisol. They had like a Flow Toys promotional video, and I was like, oh, I see the tech being applied. And I remember this one point where they were tunneling split opposite anti-spin flowers, and like the whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And I was like, Kaden, that move right there, you got to teach me that move. And he was like, okay, I think there are like 100 other ones you should learn first, but I was like, no.
Yeah,
That's
you were dead set. You had like, I don't think you even had like a reverse 3-beat or anything. It was like the first wall playing thing you'd done other than a butterfly. I was like, I want to get that right now. And then you did. Yeah, which was pretty cool. I think that's part of what, like, I don't know, part of what gave you a leg up a lot of this, and why, like for most people, if you try to talk to them about VTG as their first intro into poi, they'd like glaze over or just kind of pat you on the head or something. Right. But like, I think coming from astrophysics and coming from like a very geometrically inclined, like way of looking at the world, like that. You were kind of primed for a lot of that.
Yeah.
Did you already have your degree? I didn't catch that.
At that point, I still had 1 year to go. So I had this introduction from Kaden to poi. He gave me this like really fast forward instruction, and then we broke ways. I went back to Oklahoma for the remaining year to finish my degree. That whole year for me was class, homework, poi practice. That was it. That was the only thing I did. And like I set up mirrors in my room. I watched, that was 2010. At that time, I can tell you confidently that I watched every poi video on the internet.
Yeah.
Every single one. And on all of them, I would pick out the moves that I liked and I thought would feel good, and I wanted to incorporate into my flow, and I would like make animated GIFs of them. They're still in a collection somewhere on the internet or whatever. And I would just practice them ceaselessly.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'd Skype Kaden and be like, hey, check out this progress, and then we'd get super hyped together and like share on each other's inspiration.
Yeah. I think you touched on something that I love talking to like younger spinners, meaning like people that haven't been spinning for very long, about, which is like how much amazing like change and progress and growth has happened over the poi and the internet over the last decade or so. Like you're talking about, like, yeah, I had seen every video about poi on YouTube. There's a point a couple years before that where like I couldn't find a video with a move I didn't know in it, because like if you're deep into it, nobody's really gone outside what you can learn in like a year if you're dedicated, right? And like remembering, just like, I think it's important to be aware of like how much crazy growth and change has happened as we get more people, and honestly like more dedicated people involved in this kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like an exponential growth. I feel like especially in the last year, there's been an insane amount of growth with just cool, weird manipulations that people can do with poi. A lot of the right angles and stuff that people are making, like that 10 years ago wasn't a thing. Or I mean, we were talking about earlier, contact poi was invented in 2008. Ronan invented contact poi. Yeah, that happened. Yeah.
Ronan was also the first person I ever saw juggling poi.
That and spinning 3.
And spinning 3.
And spinning 4.
Yeah.
Maybe Chris Rovo.
Maybe Rovo. Yeah, I feel like Rovo was more meteors though.
That's true.
Yeah.
Rovo, he blurs the lines between meteor and poi so well, and I think he's he's probably in my top 10 list of underrated, like the OG underrated poi spinner.
Yeah.
People don't really know about him, and he's done crazy cool work for poi, especially in the early days. Yeah, and he's still killing it too.
Yeah.
Just not asking for much back. It's just like, check this out. This is awesome.
Yeah, he performed at Fire Drums like maybe last year or 2 years ago.
Do you really?
Nice.
Yeah, I think he did 4. I don't remember if it was fire poi or normal poi, but it was cool to see him on stage. I hadn't seen him do any kind of performance. I don't think since like Flow Storm 2014 or something. So that was really awesome.
Yeah.
What were some? Because you mentioned the video with Utah and Thomas.
Yeah.
What were some of the other videos that you guys, when you first started spinning, what were like videos that we'd rewatch over and over?
Yeah, originally it's Nick Woolsey, which is kind of the default answer for anybody that's been spinning for long enough, right? Is like, I think Wind Circle's Dream was like his big one for me. It was like a mixture of like footage of fire and sock poi and LED stuff and some exposure photography, and was really
showing like what the art form gives back to a person in action. I think that was really. Do you guys want to try something? On the count of 3, number 1 most impactful poi video that you ever watched. Okay. On your poi journey, like we all say it at the same time.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Brainstorming. Poi. What?
Antiphon.
Antiphon.
Oh yeah.
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 Nice.
Antiphon is real
Keith
good up
Marshall,
there.
Antiphon.
Yeah.
The first time I saw that, I watched it with my buddy Kenny. Soul Seed Music, he showed me poi. So if you like what I do, you should go to soulseedmusic.com and at least watch them on YouTube. We both watched the Antiphon video, and both of us were like, this is dumb. We're like, we were into like flow flowers and stuff. So we saw Keith Marshall doing all this like different stuff, weird tangles and standing in fountains with harem pants. He was just a weird hippie, like dready hippie. And the first time we saw it, we're like, this video is not what we're into. And then after spinning for like a year, we went back to it, and then since then it's been my favorite video. Even though a lot of the tech is older now, it's still, for that time, it was completely new. And that was also the first video. I think that may have been the first video ever with poi juggling in it. I might be wrong.
I think a Ronin video had it before, or I don't know if
The one in the
there was
woods?
a video before it. I know Ronin did it before he did, but that might be
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
I would believe that. That's the first video
What is
with poi juggling.
What
in it.
videos did you guys say?
ours were both surreal videos, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Brainstorming.
I said brainstorming. You said melting
Mine
poi.
was Melting Poi was from 2010. It was the video before. It was
For
his
brainstorming.
predecessor to Brainstorming.
Mhm.
So Melting Poi had a lot more spinning stuff in it, and it was like very much a contact poi video. I would put Brainstorming more in the. I would also call that a contact poi video. It was more like juggling
Yes.
with two poi.
Yeah.
If there's ever a time where you can call like two objects being juggled, that's like a prime example. Brainstorming. Melting Poi for me is like the ultimate video. I mean, that's totally my own biased point of view. Like for my poi journey, it's been my ultimate poi video. It like I saw that, and for the time that it was out on YouTube, there was nothing like it in my opinion, and it's still timeless. If you go back and watch the whole video, if you're really into poi and you've been spinning it hard for 5 years, you're gonna watch that video and you're gonna be like, oh my god.
A lot of people don't know about surreal either.
I'm blown away by that every festival I go to.
Well, because
Every single workshop I go, every 2-point workshop that I teach, I mention Surreal, and nobody has any idea who he is.
I think
insane.
It's
part of this
crazy.
is a testament to the new era of poi. Like we're kind of talking about the stages, the ages and stages of poi spinning. The era of like long feature-made YouTube poi videos is dwindled, and it's like it's only, I think, alive more so for the more focused people and the people who were already into it earlier on. Because
Right,
now there's
yeah.
Instagram and
Yeah.
Facebook and
and all sorts of things about poi. Like I think if you're posting a tutorial or like Drex has done, like a bio or anything that's documenting poi, those still end up on YouTube, it seems like. But for anybody that's trying to, like, for lack of a better term, like publish a move, just like, hey everybody, here's this cool thing that I found. Used to be the way to do that was to make a tech blog about it and like explore as many permutations of it as you could, dig all around it, and do that as like a little project. And which isn't like a judgment call on that. I think there's pros and cons to that, as well as like the one thing at a time or one sequence at a time Instagram thing. But just knowing that that used to be the way that it was done.
yeah.
I'm gonna make an even bolder claim than you did, which is I think that brainstorming might be the most important poi video.
Of all times.
Of
What
all
makes
time.
you say that?
I say that because that took us, I think that was the breaking point away from poi as a continuous spinning oriented thing, like continuous spinning with like, and being interested in the ways that that pattern is being manipulated, into being object focused and being less inclined towards that perpetual motion.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting proposal there. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's where a lot of people, I mean, I know for me and for people that I was talking to at that time too, that like seeing that showed poi being manipulated in a way that convinced me that there was as much complexity and nuance there as there was in like tech spinning.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, which
I
is a big
agree.
deal.
Maybe not. I don't know if I'll agree with the statement of most influential of all time, but I agree that that was definitely a point when Surreal started posting it, or at least felt like, I don't know if I started spinning before that, but seeing Surreal's videos definitely gave me the perspective of like, you don't just have to hold the handles.
Yeah.
There's like so much more you can do.
Yeah, I think the other important thing that I took away from brainstorming, I don't know how much this was true for other people, is seeing him have an idea that he must have known at the time he had it would be very, very difficult to do. But then having the foresight to like know that if he trained it, it would be able to happen. Like there are tricks in brainstorming
Right.
that are clearly like juggling tricks
And
that
still
are
haven't
hard,
really been done.
that nobody else does.
Yeah.
Still, the video came out in 2011. You know.
That's crazy.
I know that Surreal has taken a lot of his inspiration for poi from juggling in like this whole history of object manipulation and those techniques. Those things were already happening in the juggling world, especially in Europe and in France even. specifically, like, you can see the styles that were happening in juggling at that time being translated into poi by Surreal, and he may or may not have known at that time that he was like creating an aesthetic, and he was breaking and introducing a new perception to people about poi and what it could be and what it could do. It's funny how memory works, because I don't remember where we were.
I remember exactly where we were.
Where were we?
Yes.
Whoa.
We were at
When it came out?
yes, the day it came out.
We were together.
We were
and
together. We were
when
at the big like Cirque Palace house where Matt and Luby and Juice lived.
we were in Nevada City, California,
Yeah.
nice little hippie town, and we were at a friend's house.
The circus house of the
So it was
area.
like-
Basically,
yeah.
all the aerialists and jugglers and people. We just
We were like,
crashed there.
Surreal just came out with a new video. Oh my god! And then, let's stop everything we're doing. We're gonna watch it. And
Yeah.
I remember laying on the floor
Mhm.
on our bellies, and like, okay, you ready? Play. And then we started yelling,
Yeah.
and we just yelled for, oh my god! We're just flipping out. And
Yeah.
like, what was that?
Yeah.
And,
This is the way it
yeah.
used to be, kids. You got one
It
good
didn't
video
used
a
to be.
month, and you're grateful for it.
That's pretty cool. Let's just scroll to the next thing now.
Yeah.
But that's okay too.
Yeah. Also
Just
okay.
not as good.
Yeah. Mostly just saying this
Also
so I can
okay.
feel old,
Yeah.
which is
There's
kind of
something
fun.
satisfying about
Whippersnappers.
when like a long video comes out, like seeing you've been notified, like Surreal posted a new video, going to his account and clicking it, and then it's like 7 minutes. You can stop midway and go try a trick, where like Instagram, you see a trick, you can stand up right away and try the trick. But if you see a long tech blog, if you sit and watch the whole thing, you get this like overwhelming, you're like, there's so many possibilities. It's almost more rewarding in some senses than watching 50 clips 50 days in a row in comparison to 50 clips at once. It's like the 50 clips at once is going to throw you off guard much more, I think, than 50 in a row.
Yeah. I think the thing that I appreciate about the longer form video too is that it allows for like a broader picture of what someone's style is, and for them to show you like different variations on a single idea. Like there's a bunch of stuff in brainstorming that's like that. Like that's, and like stylistically for us, like what's Surreal called slide throws, which are now called no beats, which are like all of these like
Insert slide throw.
slide
here.
throws right here. Yeah, just a half
Can we
rotation
just-
thing.
Can we just settle something right now
Yeah,
on an
do it.
official podcast?
Yeah.
We call them no beats. It's very much not accurate. I'm willing to like say it for colloquial reasons, and so that we have a commonality and like a shared lexicon. And if we want to be accurate about it, I think we really ought to call them halves, because that's what's happening. It's rotating halfway. And no beat is like, if someone hasn't heard it before, it doesn't really convey what it is well, and they have to already know what a beat is, whereas a half is very geometrical. And if you show a person the toss and you say this is called a half, they're going to immediately know why. And even if they don't see it and you say, hey, I've been working on halves, they can probably kind of guess what that means. So I think it's on the table. There are a lot of us kind of rallying behind that.
Yeah.
But
If we all started doing that, we could probably do nothing
So
about
what
it,
was
because
the
language
no
is.
beat then?
What was a no beat? A no beat
Why did
was
people start calling it no beat?
when or why?
When? Why? What is like the history behind the term no
So
beat?
Surreal, the year after posted brainstorming, this is our Surreal biopic. Everybody, this is why Surreal is cool. Did a workshop tour of the U.S. He did one. Yeah, he did one in Oakland at the Prop Box, which is the first time Willow and I went to the Prop Box,
we
where
were the only
Willow
ones that showed up.
later ended up working or living,
What?
but we were the only ones that showed up to Surreal's workshop.
That's crazy.
It was great. It was very good.
We're like, where are we? I've never been to the Volga.
Yeah,
This is,
we
we're gonna
we
knock on the
arrived and
door.
Surreal was asleep on a couch. We had to wake him up. But yeah, so Surreal, as he did in brainstorming, he had two of them. He had the like wheel plane reverse no beat to penguin catch thing.
Where it threw into the air?
Yeah, where it arcs, but then the tether kind of slides down his arms into a penguin
Okay.
right there,
Backwards spin.
backward. And he had this like forward wheel plane over the arm and kind of catch
He
like
always
that.
caught it with the claw too.
Yeah,
That was his
kind of like this.
method for that.
He had those two. I think he did them maybe like two on one side, occasionally like that. And he called those slide throws because they kind of slid down his arm in order to catch them, right? We kind of latched onto that. And I feel like that's a lot of, you know, if people know us from something, it's probably Shirts on Trees. And turns out trees had a lot of that technique in it.
Yeah, it's funny because Cyril's work with slide throws came first.
Mm-hmm.
We went to his workshop, totally fell in love with it, jammed on it, expanded on that idea a lot, and then I think the first really like big video of that concept was Kaden when we were traveling in New Zealand together. He made this video that was just called Slide Throws, and it was him on this like beach in front of a lake in New Zealand showing these different kinds of slide throws. And it was that concept.
Very much a tech blog.
Yeah, it was very much a tech blog. Didn't
dry.
get a lot of attention, but like that was totally a snapshot of like what him and I were actually
You guys
working
had
on
a
at
partner
the time.
video from, you were in New Zealand, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing, before I knew you guys, looking up on YouTube and finding a video of you guys spinning in front of a crowd, and you weren't passing, but you were like mimicking patterns. That's crazy.
Was it with fire or was it?
I don't
That
remember.
was
that
in
Sun Coast?
Malaysia. Yeah,
Was that the
it was
same
right
year?
after we were traveling in New Zealand. I was after he released the slide throws video, and we went to Malaysia. Cool story. Do you want to hear it? I'll tell the short version.
Yeah.
How long have we been going now? Like 35, 36 minutes?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's a
So-
good story. Go.
We were traveling in New Zealand for a while. That was where we worked on slide throws. I don't know. I think somehow we heard from somewhere else that it was called a no beat.
Yeah, someone called it a
Someone called it
no-beat. I
that.
don't know.
And so we
What
started
year was
calling
that?
it that.
2013.
I feel like Keith Marshall brought no beat.
It might have been him
Here.
because we were in contact
Keith's
with him.
fault.
Yeah.
Straight up Keith.
Yeah.
We were in New Zealand. We traveled. We went from New Zealand to Southeast Asia. We went like up from Singapore and then through Malaysia. We were in Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia, and we were set to leave the next day. And I was like, hey, I think I saw a YouTube video one time of a guy spinning poi in front of the Petronas Towers, which are like the big iconic skyscrapers of Kuala Lumpur. And I was like, let me just see if I can find that video again. And I typed like Kuala Lumpur poi into YouTube. And I found the video, and it was Ifik Kaikal, who, bless his soul, what a man.
Oh my God.
Where do I even begin?
Yeah.
But we were going to leave the next day. We were going to leave Malaysia. But I was like, hey, let's just see if we can meet up with this guy today because we haven't met a poi spinner in Malaysia yet. And I messaged him on YouTube, and he messaged me 5 minutes later, and he was like, where are you? And we're like, what? We're here at this hostel, and he's like, stay there, someone's going to come pick you up. And then before we knew it, we were like at his
Community?
parents'
Yeah.
house and like meeting his whole family.
That's so awesome.
And we were all like, we met all of his friends and we're jamming, and never before then had I experienced such a sense of like close-knit community around shared skills and a shared like practice, a personal practice.
Dude, I've got chills.
Oh, it was
dude.
so amazing,
Ooh.
amazing. These people, like Ifik and his friends, they would, they wake up and all call each other and be like, hey, what are we doing today? And then they would like go somewhere, find somewhere to train, or maybe go all work at their separate jobs and then find somewhere to train. And then they would like eat together, and then they would convoy down the road together to their next thing. And it was just like dawn till dusk. We are a group. We have this thing that we share, and we do it together, and we practice, and we get better at it, and we help each other get better.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And so we were there and feeding off of that and like resonating with that kind of inspiration and growing it with them. And
Also being hosted and put up by Ifik and his family at
Yeah.
the drop of a hat, which is, I think,
That's so
a lot of that
awesome.
I think speaks to Malaysian culture as much as it does floor arts culture.
All right, time for an ad. This episode is brought to you by Things on Strings, custom contact poi. Order them. That's the only ad right now. We need more sponsors. Be our sponsor.
it's crazy. They would do everything together every day. And it was massively impactful for us. And I think, I hope that we had an impact there as well, because we were there and just like feeding and resonating off of that inspiration and growing it. And
Ifik and his friends all put on a flow festival there in Malaysia. It was super small, but like for the size that it was super well organized and well attended and great. I think like Gold Coast Flow Retreat, I want to say,
yeah,
is
that's
what it was called. Yeah.
It was like a group of like 30 people pretty much that, Ifik was like, hey, Kaden and Willow are here. I'm going to call up my friend and Colin from
From Thailand to come out.
was he in
Is he in
Thailand?
Thailand?
I think he was in Myanmar.
Oh,
Just, like,
yeah.
get another white guy in here, just like get it all going.
And Thomas Nevisol
Oh yeah, and
somehow
Thomas
was there.
Johansson was there.
I think he may have been like the big international person that I think like actually brought in for the event. That's what I remember, I think. But then we got brought onto it too. The video you saw, I think, is the only like rehearsed routine we've ever done.
Yeah.
Which because they wanted us to perform something, and so we made that.
That's
happen
awesome.
Also,
Yeah, that was something.
how we do.
Okay, we've solved some technical difficulties.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
We found
If
out
you
that,
had to wait for anything at all, we don't know that yet.
that noise was being caused by a phone that was right next to the recorder. There was some voodoo magic happening.
Yeah, you should all send Chris money so that he can record better.
Yeah, I advocate that.
Donate to the new Things on Strings full-length video that's going to be coming out with the whole team, including them possibly doing a new partner play routine. Donate to that, and then maybe it'll get new recording equipment or something. Oh, this podcast is brought to you by Things on Strings, number one contact point on the market.
True fact.
We're sponsored. We're looking for more sponsors. Word.
Dude, should we? Well, okay.
Should we talk about rope?
Yeah, let's talk about poi now.
Okay.
Talk about like physical poi,
The actual poi.
how they've changed.
Can I just
over
finish
time.
saying about IFEK something
Yes.
important though?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about Malaysia, going there, and how crazy connected the community was, how we had this amazing time at the Gold Coast retreat, which was put on very quickly, and it was just like 30 people getting super hyped. I went and visited IFEK at his day job at the time, which was as a bungee jumping
We all
instructor.
went, right? We all
What?
go and bungee jump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, we went. Yeah, we all went. We rode the like wave boogie board thing. It was sweet, and then we went and did bungee jumping with IFEK, and that was his job. And then before we left Kuala Lumpur, he was like, "I think I'm gonna quit my job and start a performance company," and that was like the climax of all the inspiration for all the time we were there, and all of this like collaboration that was happening, this constant like wake up and just spinning and juggling, and then like go to sleep and know we were going to do the same thing the next day. And then it ended with like, okay, that was amazing, see you later, definitely later, we'll see you. Yeah, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start a performance company. Now if you follow Psychu6, that's like PSYCUSIX on Instagram and YouTube, it's astounding what he's built. Him and his friends in Kuala Lumpur, they have like a performance company that is exposing the masses and like the public to spinning and to flow arts like nowhere else in the world. They're on big stages with pyrotechnics and like full production corporate events. And
Did a
So
Burger
awesome.
King commercial for Burger
What?
King Malaysia.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the stuff they're doing is way
Dang.
higher profile than anybody else in the world that I know
Yeah.
of.
Crushing it.
They're killing it, and like big props to them.
Mhm.
Constant inspiration every time I look that up.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so how soon after you got back from Malaysia did you guys film Shirts on Trees?
Let's see, that was
Had we even done Giant White Box by that?
yeah, we done Giant White. Yeah, because
You sure?
that was like our foot in the door in New Zealand to like meeting all the
Oh, you're right.
friends there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we arrived in New Zealand, we went to this hostel called the Juggler's Rest, and it's like a hostel for jugglers.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's cool.
It was cool.
Heck
We were
yeah.
there. We were just like, oh, let's go see what this place is, and we had no idea it was going to tap us into like the whole flow scene in New Zealand. Being there and having already released our first video that kind of got some attention, which was Giant White Box.
Mhm.
We met people that are like, oh, you guys are the Giant White Box dudes. You're gonna like come with us and like teach at this festival called Luminate, which
Mhm.
was so amazing.
Yeah.
Such a cool festival. We like taught at a couple other places, and
This is also evidence of how different the scene was there too.
yeah,
Because like having made a video was like meaningful
One
at
video.
that point.
Right.
A video.
That's
yeah, it was like we
crazy.
made a tech blog and some people saw it.
we came out swinging though.
That's
We were
true.
Like, oh, let's make a poi video. Let's like take this to the next step. And then we made like a 10-minute long video to like a really techie sounding ochre song, and
Yeah.
it was
In a racquetball court.
in a racquetball court.
Also important.
OG.
Oh, gee.
I think we
It's
did that
important.
shortly after we went to Lake Tahoe Flow Arts Festival. We
Yes.
met all of our internet heroes for the
Yes,
first
that
time,
was
like
very cool.
Noel. and
2013.
2012. We went.
Saw Ronan spin 3-point for the first time.
Did you go to? Were you at 2012 Packfire?
Yes.
Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, that was where we met.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember being introduced. I mean, at that time I had been spinning for 2 years, and I was like proud of my skills. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just like come here and just meet all these cool people, and they're gonna respect and value me because I practice so hard. This is a lifestyle for me. It's not just a hobby. And then I met you, and people were like whispering about you, like that's the guy that like he started with 3-point.
No. 2012. I only had levy wand. I didn't even own a contact
Shit,
point.
we didn't
yet.
meet
Whoa.
then. I
Yeah.
didn't even.
Whoa.
I met you in
Yeah.
2013.
My
then.
first, 2013, yeah, because Olivia introduced us, and you were like, I'm from Grass Valley. And I was like, dude, what the heck? I had spent like years in Grass Valley because my family lived there. And I was like, why did I not know there was community in Grass Valley? But yeah, 2012, I had fire poi and I had a levy wand. I didn't have contact poi yet. Yeah.
That's funny.
Nobody knew me when I went in 2012. Sock poi Dan
Yeah.
Pang, is that his last name?
Dan Pang, yeah.
Yeah, he was the first person at Packfire to approach me and be like, who are you? How's it going? And what tricks are you working on? And I'll never forget that, dude. Like, Dan was the one that made me feel like welcome into the community at first.
Dan is a cherub. He's like one of those blessed few people who just like upon meeting him, he sees you how you want to be seen and respects you like authentically, and he is genuinely curious. I love that man. He's great. And his flow is amazing. Like I love how he breaks free of constructs when he's spinning, and there are a lot of spinners that do this. Dan is a great example of somebody who is not bound by planes so much. His style of spinning is like so much body, like it's bodily toroid working, where he's like, if he's spinning and he feels like, okay, I want to change my timing and direction, he doesn't need to use like a orthogonal, like right angle plane transition. He just says like, I'm going to do that, and he makes it work, but not in a disruptive way. It's like a lot of spherical spinning. Yeah, I love the spinning. It's awesome.
Yeah. That style of spinning in general, I think that like he and Nikki for a while both were like really putting forward as a thing worth pursuing, has really been kind of like sidelined or doesn't get talked about very much, kind of because poi from that part of the time doesn't really get talked about that much. But
Right.
the like not less analytical, but less like mathematically inclined, I guess, ways of getting from one point to another.
Right, just like
Tech.
flowing through patterns rather than this like grid. Maybe that's not the right way to explain it. Instead of this like set line of this is how you get from this trick to this trick, it's like finding everywhere on the spectrum where you can go from this trick to this trick. It's not just one direct transition. There's a million different transitions to go from anti-spin to in-spin.
It's a continuous transition instead of a discrete transition.
Exactly.
Like that.
We did workshops in like 2014 together on spherical spinning and like plane changing in a more progressive way, and I think it was never really normalized and kind of put into the mainstream poi technique scene. It's still not a thing that people do, but there are so many ways besides your standard like stall and then like change planes. There are a lot of ways to transition from plane to plane.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I see that all the time with juggling.
Yeah.
Now it's like planes are kind of a thing that's important or a thing that's not at all important for poi juggling, depending on like what you're doing or how you're approaching it.
Right.
I think he already kind of came up earlier, but I think like if you want to see an example of that being done really well, it's like bow doing any no beat pirouette stuff where it's like the planes bend, but you can tell that it's bending in a consistent way, so he knows how many cycles he needs to get to make a 180 rotation or a 360 rotation or anything.
Straight up.
Yeah, very cool.
I just remembered I met you guys at Fire Drums 2013. Packfire, I like officially met you, but we kind of met each other Fire Drums 2013, and then I have to mention that Fire Drums 2014, you did no beat cascade, half cascade with penguins, and no one else could even process how to start the pattern. Everyone was so used to doing split time juggles, either with pendulums or with the active 2, and the idea of starting it in a third time, no one could even do it. So that's also on record. Kaden was the first one to no beat Cascade. I saw it.
Dude, it's so funny too, because I think if you want to give me like technical credit for that, that is fine. But I hadn't really juggled poi before that at all. I'm just like, I liked no beats, halves, whatever. I was like, okay, there's got to be a way to juggle that. And I tried it and had been trying it for like a week or something, and then was like, maybe later, and then just went back to regular poi for a
Dude,
while.
it was working.
But I'm glad it lit a fire.
That
under
stuck
somebody.
out. Yeah, it stuck out in my mind. But then no one really played around with it until Ty. Ty did a Seb's mess with poi, and it was the first time anyone really had a clean Seb's mess with no, no pauses or the poi.
Justin Widmar and I both had it before that, but we just didn't film it, I have to say.
Well, then I don't believe you then.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, Pixar
Was
didn't
it
happen,
like-
but Justin Widmar, by the way, as long as we're like doing this history of poi thing, like talking about people, we mentioned Lake Tahoe Flow Arts Festival earlier, which was such a cool festival because we went in 2012. It was more or less my first flow festival, and that was the time. That was the moment where, and I think we shared that moment where we were there, and in utter disbelief because we had just spent, in your case, 5 to 7 years watching all the YouTube videos of all those people, and I had just done the same for 2 years. And then we suddenly went to this festival, this small little festival of like 50 people, and we met Ronan, Yuta, Thomas, and Noel, and like even Dai was there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what is this? And then I remember driving home from that festival and having this conversation where I was like, Kaden, I think this whole scene that we're like trying to get involved in is just way smaller than we ever realized.
Yeah.
And all these people that are like our kind of idols, our internet heroes, they could actually just be our friends, and they're totally normal people.
Yeah.
And fast forward, like I lived at the Vulcan for a few, and like we totally manifested that reality in a sense. We were just like, oh yeah, that's totally a thing. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's just keep making videos and keep practicing, and then these are all people we want to be friends with, and that's totally just
And they just were
gonna happen.
Yeah.
And one of those people was Justin. It was so cool because the first time I went to Lake Tahoe Flow Arts Festival, were you there the first year that I went? Yes, okay. But I had arrived first, and I went there, and I was wondering where the festival was, and I just like, I was also in those early stages of, I've only met like 3 other people who do this, and anybody that I set eyes on who is like spinning a thing, they're instantly my friend, and I am just like all up in their face, just like, isn't this the coolest thing ever? And then so I walk behind this like hotel, and I'm like, I think this is where this festival is supposed to be, but I don't see anybody. And I see a guy sitting on a bench, and he has this smirk on his face, and he's looking at me. He's like, and I'm just like, he spins poi. I just know it. Look at his face. And I walk over there. And I'm like, hey, you a poi spinner? And he's like, yeah. And I'm just like, you want to jam or what? And it was just so much fun. We were like instantly friends. Yeah, me and Widmar instantly became friends. And like the whole weekend, we were hanging out and just jamming hard. I think he still has the set. I know he did when we lived together at the Vulcan, of these purple and orange sock poi that he had made. And he just spent that whole weekend blowing my mind with tech patterns and just being like, did you know that all this 3D stuff exists? And if you haven't heard of Justin Widmar, I mean, I don't know if he's on the top 10 OG list, but like overall top 10 underrated poi spinners and just spinners in general, he's definitely in there.
And members of the community.
Yes.
Justin
Dude.
3D prints your knobs.
Oh my God.
More than likely, he's 3D printing your knobs.
He's
right now.
Whatever
Right
prop,
now.
Yours.
whatever prop you're thinking of, like think of a prop 3, 2, 1. He spins it better than everybody. Okay.
Straight up.
Yeah, it's not wrong. You're not wrong.
He does like all the stuff. He can do like a lot of the stuff that we do on poi. He if he hasn't done it, he can do it.
It's easy for him.
He just
to
like
learn these
can
things
do it
is easy
instantly.
for him.
It's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah, he's also like.
And also, he's had a huge help in like the creation of what is standard in like contact staff with the silicone grip with the carbon fiber was, I'm fairly certain it comes down to Widmar, and like with the yoga mat, that was like a Widmar design. They were called Widmar staffs for a long time.
That's him.
Yeah.
He's
crazy.
I mean, it's because he's even had a lot of influence on the direction of Flow Toys, which is like, the largest company in this whole scene that has had a massive impact on shaping the community. Well, that company in and of itself is the product of a select few people, and like those, there are generations within those people. And like Sean and Prison, the company owners, of course, they started it and carry that torch, and they've had most of the light that's coming out of that sort of tone setting business and that scene. And Justin Widmar is one of the people as well who's worked with and for that company for years and has actually influenced a lot of how things get made and why. This knob that so many people use on their poi is the product of Justin and I. We were roommates at the Prop Box Unit 5 in the Vulcan. We were living together, and we were like, hey, we've been playing with these different knobs, these Henry's knobs and like all this stuff, and
Palm grips and stuff.
we were like, none of them are just right, like for the ones that feel good in your hand or the right shape or the right sort of texture, they hurt too much when you catch them if you're trying to juggle. And so that knob is the product of him and I just like going back and forth, and him printing, because he's a 3D printing whiz, and being
And that was
like,
right when he got his first machine too,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, that was one of the first big
That's
projects.
crazy.
And he would like print one with some density and be like, hey, how's this density? And then I'd be like, like maybe a little bit less. And then we went through dozens of versions of it, of different shapes, sizes, and densities and materials before we were finally like, okay, that's the ticket right there. And that's why we have these Widmar knobs now.
And you used the standard size Widmar knob for quite a long time, right?
Originally, yeah.
I did until I started getting more into no beats and juggling, and just having a larger knob size meant that I could like have a more relaxed and open sort of ring on my finger to let the tether slide through. It meant I could get down to the handle faster and easier, rather than having to make that circle smaller in order to catch the knob. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There's a story behind this tether that
Every
VPC
part of
rope.
this is really important.
It kind of is.
Yeah. Widmar did this.
Yeah, this rope was my discovery at, it was also when I was there at the Vulcan, and I was like, every few months I was going to this marine store in Alameda, next to Oakland, and I was testing different rope, and I would be like, okay, this might be the one, and then I would take it back to the prop box, play with it for a couple months, see how it breaks in and wears down, and then go back and be like, okay, that wasn't the one. And then I must have gone through like hundreds of different ropes and like rubbed them on my neck and everything, and just tried until finally finding this one and realizing after a lot of use, like, oh my gosh, it still feels new, or it gets broken in, but it also doesn't degrade somehow.
It changes the least.
It changes the
And
least.
it breaks in the best.
It breaks in the best. It has a really ideal stiffness, and it's just everything about it is.
The braid is like sleek because it's a 4x4 double braid. It's like a slicker. It's not as rough in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still had the slickness, like a lot of the. Even after getting broken in and being dropped in the dust a lot, it maintains like a nice slide so that you can catch and.
It's
get
almost
to the
better
handle.
once it's been dropped in the dirt and wet and stepped on and
And seasoned.
it's
Which is not the
seasoned.
Worked
case
in.
for most other tethers. It
Most
actually
ropes
gets
become
worse.
horrible and abrasive
Yeah.
and weird. I think the thing that I love about these tethers probably the most is how like the middle point that they've found between stiffness and looseness.
Right.
It's like they still spin really well. Like I use this tether for any two-poi thing that I'm ever gonna do, and it juggles really well, and it stays really
It's the
stiff.
perfect medium, yeah.
Yeah, which is why all the cool kids are all about it.
And now if you go into the West Marine that you went to, if you walk in and you're like a hippie and you walk into that boat store, they know what you need. Like so many people now have gone there to buy rope that they know, and they'll help you like tie off the ends and stuff.
Yeah.
They helped you guys.
they'll me, yeah.
What was the knot called?
Whipping.
Whipping
We
knot.
whipped it. Yeah.
Whipping is like when it's like a sailing term for when you close the end of a cut rope up by taking twine and like wrapping it around in a special way and threading it through with a needle. It's nice and fancy, and we did that. I never capitalized on it. For me, it was totally like a selfish venture. I was just like, I want to find the best possible tether for juggling and tossing, And then, you know, it just slowly became like, okay, now this is what Justin uses. Okay, now this is what Kaden's using and Chris is using.
Well, I remember I stayed at the prop box in like 2014, and you were traveling, or you had gone to Germany or something. I don't exactly remember what. But there was a piece of this rope sitting at the prop box. It was just one segment of it, and I was holding it, and I was feeling it, and I think there was a used set of poi too, and I was comparing the used set of poi to the brand new piece of rope, and I almost took the piece of rope. I didn't because I was like, I'm not just going to take Willow's stuff, but
You could have taken it.
who knows if we would be here right now, though.
Yeah.
Maybe if I stole your stuff, we wouldn't be friends. But I remember thinking, like, this is the rope. And then it was, like, another, like, full year until I accepted that that's just the rope to use.
I think of when I tell people what this thing is that I'm interested in, I always say juggling because I like the way that in Europe they use juggling as an umbrella term, under which is like spinning, and it refers to all object manipulation, right? Juggling is synonymous with object manipulation, so spinning, juggling, throwing, whatever. And with like clubs, you don't as much have this like,
It's not modular.
yeah, it's
There are
like
parts.
I have a love-hate relationship with it because on the one hand, I cannot pick up another person's poi and be like, yep, and then just like do the stuff that I normally do, right? As soon as I pick up somebody else's poi, I am indulging in like a totally new thing that is also a grave like handicap to my techniques.
But there's also an insight to the tricks they do.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And there's those strengths too. Another strength is just like constantly optimizing and the personalization aspect of it. But with like clubs, you have a few of them that are on the market, and people have their preferences, and they know what they like, and they also know what the other ones feel like, and they're all very close to the same thing. And
Which is why people
poi
can
range is
pass
like-
clubs that are all kinds of different models and brands and everything, and it's
Right.
totally fine. Whereas when like, I think at a few festivals we've had like 4 or 5 person poi passing patterns, and they only really worked because we carry around way too many poi with us all
Right.
the time. And we can all use pretty much the same poi
Right.
while we do that. But yeah, I totally agree that it's this weird love-hate relationship where I can't equate someone else's poi to my own in the same way, and I can't use them that way. But also, like you were saying, you get insight into someone's poi style by what their physical poi
Like,
look
didn't
like.
you finally get to play with Cyril's poi from the brainstorming
Yes.
at MOPS one year? And it was all like
They were so
springy and
weird.
something weird.
Yeah, they were cable.
We got
They
to
weren't
play
rope.
with them at that workshop that we
Yeah.
took at the Vulcan in 2012, right?
Yeah, Cyril went outside to like smoke or something.
Played with them all quick.
So we yeah,
We took
they were-
pictures of them. And
Yeah,
like,
we
put the
did.
next to our
Yeah,
reference
so
for
let's break it
things.
down. It's a white stage ball,
Mr. Babosh.
Babosh white stage ball.
What?
100
Yeah,
millimeter. He
100
used
millimeter.
Babosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
He uses 100?
He used hundreds
Yeah.
for not for melting poi, but for brainstorming. He did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Word.
nerds, poi nerds, everybody. Then there's weird. It was very narrow, like maybe like the thickness of a pencil, maybe silver cabley stuff. The weirdest thing about it was when the poi were on the ground. You know, most time poi are just like in a gentle curve or like a straight line like that. They would spiral. They would like there's this loose like coil around.
Because the one side of the whole wiry string stuff he was using had a seam on it that made it tighter. So if you imagine one whole side of the tether being tighter than the rest of it, made it into like a spring, like a light spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that on purpose or just
No,
No.
I think
all we had?
His
Yeah.
knob was a furniture knob.
yeah.
Like,
And we used furniture knobs for a long time too. Furniture knobs were the
Yeah.
best thing before this. Did you ever use furniture knobs?
No,
or were you
I
on
used,
palms?
I used silicone ball knobs, then palms, and then
Gotcha.
stubby knobs.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when palms first came out thinking they were just like elitist and weird. Just like you have to make a whole thing for your poi.
Yeah.
And which is dumb.
That's why I was hesitant to switch from the silicone ball knob, but I ended up really liking Palm Grips and Lantern Smith. They're awesome people.
Yeah.
You should support Lantern Smith. You should buy their stuff.
underrated prop makers.
Yes.
Top 10 underrated
underrated
prop
human
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah,
we didn't talk
Charlie.
about Charlie at all
Oh,
because we're not
Charlie
going like
Fisher.
deep tech, but like Charlie's 9 square theory is amazing. It was like the like comparable in my mind to VTG as far as like its utility for that style of tech spinning.
There are so many things that that man has made, props he's made and otherwise, like things he's done that were created and are still the best of that version that I've ever seen, and like completely went unnoticed because our small world was just not ready for it. Like amazing staffs, amazing hoops, incredible like
Charlie
tethers
is
and-
the one who told people about Technora. Fire Jump
Yeah.
2013 was the first ever set of Technora Fire Poi, and you couldn't get them in your hands. So many people wanted to play with them. I never got to touch them. And by the end of the weekend, they were like, the tethers were still holding up, but the heads were all blown out. I specifically remember that. Everybody would just kept snatching from each other, and they were always being burned. Lantern Smith is responsible for popularizing Technora in Fire Poi.
That's right.
Yeah.
So true. Man, I didn't know that this podcast was going to be like all history of poi.
This is awesome.
I think it's important
yeah.
though.
It's
Yeah.
cool. Just maybe we should do another episode later that's about other stuff, because like
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
some people just don't care about history, which is fine.
That's true. I think that's like one of the more unique things that I expect us to be able to offer in
contribute
this.
to, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Just like based on the people that you've mentioned that you're gonna interview and all that, like people that I very much want to hear from, but that are much more in like the 3 to 5 years of spinning range. Yeah, we're like.
Y'all are
I'm at
veterans.
like 12 now,
That's
which is
crazy.
weird. Makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, I'm at 12. You're at 9,
Nine.
something like that. Where are you, Chris?
2011, September 2011.
Okay, so 8.
Yeah, 8. Yeah, 8. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a trip.
Maybe we should talk about poi and juggling.
Yeah,
Sure.
'Cause that's like-
yeah, that's important.
That whole love-hate thing, I was thinking could transition us there. That's something I'm so passionate about. Man, oh man. Such a fascinating thing to talk about. Because like,
how have you felt about the juggling community and their thoughts toward poi spinners?
I'll just say my like manifesto in a short version, which is there is mostly from an old guard of jugglers, but also just jugglers in general. There is a swath of them that look at poi in all of its forms, and they feel only a sense of disrespect and of like how can I say it? They look at them and they think of an other. And I've always thought it's so interesting because juggling as well as much as the so-called like flow arts community is very inclusive. They're very much a community that is non-judgmental. They're very progressive, and yet they're no escape from our human tendency to have like an us and them. And it's no surprise that with the skill that they're into, the thing that holds that community together is very difficult. The whole world still massively misunderstands juggling, and they underestimate it. They debase this years-long pursuit of just hours and hours every day practice into like a song of like dun, 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 dun. It's basic entertainment, and I know what juggling is. It's just when you take 3 objects and you go like this. And like the whole world misunderstands it. Meanwhile, they're practicing their asses off, like everybody is. And then they get together and they share in that commiseration, and they like say, okay, well, let's do this anyways, and let's all practice hard. They get together at conventions, and then they see people in the corner practicing and calling themselves one of them, but they're using a different object that they don't even throw and is way easier. And that is totally valid. The problem with it is it's not the object that is easy, it's what they were doing with it. And that has changed so much faster than those people's ability to like escape that framework of us and them.
Right.
So I still see jugglers like looking the other way when they see poi juggling happening, and it's because they already have it in their heads that like
Choosing to
job-
not look at it.
their job when it comes to poi is to think of that as like those are the people we don't like because they like are a mockery of our practice.
Mhm.
But it's funny, it's so ironic because now what we're doing is actually more difficult. Like juggling poi is way
it's pretty
harder
creative,
than
too.
juggling
Yeah.
balls and clubs.
Yeah.
And I love that process of like, watching a club juggler, just like really part of their tribe, feeling like, oh, I'm gonna get my hands dirty. Why am I walking over here? Here, try juggling poi, and then they're like, holy cow, this is crazy.
They can't
hard.
throw one
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
It's like, it's difficult, and there is a balance, and I understand people's sort of, sometimes they're thinking like, well, why would I want to do this if it's so hard? Like, why
Which
don't you
is a
just
total
juggle a rigid
weird
object?
flip flop of where they were before. Just like, I don't want to do poi because it's too easy.
It's
To
like-
I don't want to do poi because it's too hard.
Right.
And it's funny because like,
weird.
well, I'm just trying to juggle stuff, and it's like, well, why are you trying to do that? It's hard. It's super hard, and for what reason? You know, is it because you like doing things that are difficult, and then practicing, and then having something that comes out of it, like a sense of flow and accomplishment, engagement, and you like the enhancement to your life that comes from learning a skill that, arbitrary or not, like gives you a sense of progress. And yeah, that can be accomplished at any level. There doesn't need to be like an optimal thing for doing that. If you're a performer and that's your sole reason for doing it, then I understand, but then you shouldn't honestly be a juggler in the first place. You should probably be like an aerial
It's
artist
almost
or
the
a
same-
magician
Well,
or something.
so yeah, I mean, this is another thing that's like kind of a bigger thing about performing art in general, which so we shouldn't spend too much time on, but like the bigger problem that I think juggling faces is that largely in America, jugglers are comedians that juggle,
Yeah.
or they're prop comics that juggle. And the biggest hurdle that all of us have to overcome, like anybody in the like object manipulation based variety arts thing that wants to perform has to overcome, is that stigma, is the expectation that you're telling jokes, or that the skills you're doing are a way to make fun of yourself in some way. And we're really lucky to have so many Europeans who are doing it really well, like Andy Cooper, who lives here also, who I'm very lucky to live with, who does not say a word, does not do anything comedic in the same way that your run-of-the-mill like vaudeville-style American juggler would. And that's what I think the future of the art form is. I think what it has to be. If it's going to be seen at the level that I think it deserves to, which is, should be up there with ballet.
I think the future of the art form is to grow it out of its confining box of being an art form. I think one of our biggest growing pains, along with being under the circus umbrella and being part of juggling and how people see that, and especially part of being like a hippie and alternative culture, I think those are like some of our main growing pains. Another one is it simply being a performance art, because like I personally don't perform, and I don't have much of a desire to. Does that mean like I've heard people react to that with like, well, what is the point of this? Like, what are you doing? And it's like, well, it's not been that for me from the start. It's like, do you not, when you practice your juggling, your spinning or whatever, do you not feel a sense of accomplishment, of fulfillment or what have you, just outside of the stage? Because I totally do. And I think the future for spinning, for object manipulation, flow arts, especially poi, is in kind of personal practice. I could see it going in the way of like yoga, where there is yoga performance. There's all like acro yoga, and there's even yoga competitions, right? That is available because it's a smaller box than the larger box, which is yoga for like self-betterment, for health, and for kind of like personal practice. As vague of a term as that is, it's a vague term, but you look at yoga and you immediately get it, and you're like, okay, and that's a really big box that other boxes can fit inside of. Poi has that capacity as well. It has that potential, and it's only a matter of time before that goes there. I want to like give a huge recognition in that regard to Kate Regal Van West. She's done amazing work in that regard, and I think that what she's doing, I think, is really the best potential that we have for seeing our thing grow, for it going to many people as well, like growing the market, the scene, and the practice. I think she's doing like the forefront work. She's just gotten her PhD in poi basically, and she's proven objectively, that poi has these incredible health benefits for people of all ages and even people with disabilities and the elderly. And she's even started teacher certifications, which I think is like one of the big stepping stones, and she's accomplished it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And yeah, it's cool. It's like you can cite research now that says poi spinning is good for your health, and that like we didn't have that before. Having that is such a rung on the ladder, and it's only a matter of time now that we have that. And she's doing things like teacher certifications, and hopefully others will as well. It's only a matter of time before we can have poi taught in universities and in schools. And that's kind of the path that yoga followed. It was like there was a niche group of people that were into it in the States. A small group of people got together and said, hey, you know what? We need to make this thing called the Yoga Alliance where we create standards, make sure that this intention behind the thing and like the big box is preserved. And we'll do that especially by creating a teacher certification. They did that, and now the world knows yoga pretty close for what it is. It's at least a very wide box, right? There are all kinds of offshoots and maybe what some people will call perversions of yoga. But as far as things go for like giving it and handing it over to the general public, it's gone really well for yoga. And my hope is that the same will happen with poi.
I mean, we already see colleges like Reed College. They have the juggling class, which is an open class for anyone. That's how it becomes the juggle club. So you do see people getting college credit for juggling. So I mean, and I guess technically they can spin poi there too. Or do they have a curriculum that they have to follow for the juggling class for people who want the credit?
I don't actually see people practicing poi there that much. I don't know if they have any in stock, like for their classroom.
But, yeah.
I know that I've heard stories of poi as classes in a few other colleges, and it's usually like a thing that's taught by a student and lasts for one semester or two. But I would love to see eventually, poi as like a standard thing that you see in a box for like PE teachers at a public school, along with the
That'd be awesome.
cones and like the soccer ball. Yeah. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Should we eat these waffles?
Yeah, let's
Yes.
eat some waffles. I'm not gonna eat waffles because I don't eat sugar.
Yeah.
I'm
Wait,
like
can you,
2
can you
months off
explain how
sugar.
that's the secret to juggling poi so well?
Well, no, the true secret to learning how to juggle is to grow dreadlocks and cut them off. Both of y'all.
True.
Surreal,
True
Keith
fact.
Marshall, Bo,
Oh my
everyone.
gosh.
So
It's really the secret to
So
juggling.
you're really just like you're saving it up so that you can suddenly
like
be like
the-
10 years ahead of all of us. When you
Yeah,
cut
I
them
like.
off.
I appreciate the struggle. I like the.
Yeah, you're not taking the easy path like all of us.
Nah.
No.
Juggling poi with dreadlocks. It's like
If
the
and when
ultimate
you
handicap.
cut your
Yeah.
dreadlocks off, you're
I've
gonna,
been
like,
thinking about it more. I
transform
brushed
into a
out
beam.
a
Oh,
look
dreadlock
at you.
right here.
This is probably where we learned that Bo had dreadlocks from like 12 to 15 and then cut them off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he looked like a hippie. That's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open this very loud package of waffles
it.
now. Here we go.
I'm so glad I brought up my nice microphone for this. This is great.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
All right, we'll do lightning round.
Yeah.
Competition, good or bad within flow arts?
Matters how it's framed and presented.
Yeah.
Very case dependent for me.
Kind of a cop out, but
Word.
I think
Yeah.
it's inevitable. I won't take a totally defensive stance on it because I think it's going to happen, and it does inherently grow because it's appealing to people. So it grows the appeal and the market. It'll probably grow the user base of poi and spinning and juggling, and definitely stands to corrupt entirely like what it is that it does for people. WJF, I'm not gonna say love hate. I'm gonna say like teddy little love and massive hate. I like, no, not creative. Like, yes to discipline. All the things that it does for people are awesome, and it blocks so many other things that could be awesome out
Right.
by framing and presenting juggling as this certain thing. So yeah, I'm hoping that if it's ever in the Olympics, juggling, it's not what WJF is giving to the world. It's more like what IJA is giving to the world in their regional competitions. Like,
So how about name like 1 or 2 people that you see spinning poi that is very outside of the standard box of standard poi spinning currently. Like, who sticks out if you think of like original style or like who sticks out to you in poi spinning right now?
gosh, there's so many actually.
yeah. Can I look at Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at Instagram. And go through my
Justin
poi
Hindy
folder.
comes to mind.
Always.
He's just like, he is very much himself, and he is a beam of inspiration every time.
Another person that's been kind of like top of the list of like originality for going on a decade now.
Yeah.
Justin Hindy.
Justin Hindy. There
I
are
agree.
a number of glow stringers turned poi spinners, or just glow stringers that are like that too. You come to mind. I mean, like you're at the top of the list there, but you're also sitting right here, so I think I don't need to spin on that too much.
Well, I appreciate it. I super appreciate it.
I mean, Bo is doing work that is just like pushing the boundaries of difficulty. It's also very narrow, like focus, like boom. This is like, yeah, his skills are very specific. They're very juggly. The originality that I see him employing is like taking the concepts that are already there and then making them harder, doing the harder versions of those things. That is awesome.
And then doing them well.
Doing
Yes.
them well, doing them super
Very, very
clean.
cleanly.
It's like he's stepping in and being like, "No, guys,
This is how
this
you
is
really do
this
it.
is what
Yeah.
you do."
You think you know
Oh, you-
foreplay? Here's 1,000 catches of foreplay.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Sensei.
Yeah. I feel like this is kind of beating the same drum that we've been beating the whole time, but like every time I see Ronan, he's still doing new things that I didn't know before.
Dude.
And who is like this like solid rock of like doing exactly what Ronan wants to do.
Dude,
And
have you seen the interview from Flow Toys with Ronan?
yeah.
That's the most, if you guys need to go watch it. You need to go watch the
Yeah.
Flow Toys interview with Ronan. He talks about going through the process of like, at one point spinning poi for other people, trying to come up with new tricks just to please other people, and then coming to the realization of why he started spinning poi to begin with, and it's because he enjoyed it. It was fun, and going back to like just spinning 2 poi at the same time can be just as fun as trying to juggle 9 poi or whatever. Like,
I'm going through that process now myself. I have been, I think, for the past 2 years or so, and it sounds like this cathartic thing, and maybe it has been for Ronan, and maybe it's been perfectly peaceful and clarifying. For me, it's been a little bit harder because like over the years, I've gotten my identity and my sense of like self-evaluation wrapped up with, as people would do, their community and their friendships, and for all of that, it's been based around this skill. And yeah, stepping back from that now has been kind of rough, realizing like, oh my gosh, when I'm just spinning by myself to enjoy it, and I come up with something new, or like I'm flowing and something crazy, some new concept comes out, I can't anymore like do that without thinking to myself, oh, should I film that? Should I show everybody what I've done? And like that is such a dangerous and habitual trap that I see I have dug myself into very deep. And now I'm like fighting that kind of uphill battle out of that hole, trying to get back to the times when I enjoyed poi the very most, which was in the first couple of years. I had no expectations of myself, no of what it should be. It was all enjoyment, it was flow, it was learning, and yeah, I'm happy for Ronan that he's found that as well, and I hope to, if he's gotten to like a peaceful, productive place with that, that's what I'm aiming for. But that's why I haven't been posting as much. It's not that I don't practice and don't do it anymore. It's more that
refinding an inspiration. And
Yeah.
like refinding the not the feeling of needing to post, but the feeling of wanting to post and wanting to be participating. Because you don't want to not want to do this anymore.
right.
Yeah.
I want to share things too, and I want to give and like collaborate. And I love the community and everything it's done for me. I'm just also a fallible human being with an ego, and that's come at a grave cost, where it's hard to just enjoy this practice for myself anymore. And that's surprisingly difficult to get back, I'm finding.
It's all about motive.
Yeah.
Something that I think anyone, especially spinning poi now, especially with any like big picture goals about it, anyone that's sharing things on social media, it's worth considering why you're doing this, what your goals are. Like if your goal is contributing to the network of people in the community that are around you and feeding them ideas, and how much is that, and how much it's like likes and followers and all that, which are also like business concerns for some people, but being open to different reasons to be spinning poi and what that can mean for your social media stuff.
Okay, what
This
about?
is a horrible lightning round.
I know,
Very
really, it's
slow.
good. It's good though.
Yeah.
If what is a tip you would give to someone who is looking to become noticed in flow arts? What is like a tip?
Funny question to go to.
Yeah.
Practice.
Mhm.
I think no matter how well, it depends. Who are you trying to get noticed by? Because you can, if you're not that good, post a video, call it Firepoi Dubstep, and if you like do the right stuff, you do the right like social media stuff, you are sexy and you like have your shirt off and you use the right tags, you can get big to the general public.
Let's assume the people that matter, which are poi spinners.
Yeah, what about
Very
someone who
objective
wants to,
statement.
Yeah.
someone who wants to perform or teach workshops at a flow festival?
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of interpret this as like, how do you have good new ideas in poi? And for that, I'm kind of gonna, as I've kind of been doing for a long time now, parrot something that Ronan said in, again, like a very early video, I think Nick Woolsey was talking to him, which is play with one poi a lot. You're taking away so many of the limitations that you didn't know were there by having multiple poi in your hands and just thinking about, how can I get this thing to move? How can I get my body to move with it? And just generating raw material like that then gives you something that you can try to stick more poi onto if you want to. Pretty much all of my favorite 2-poi patterns and many of my favorite 3-poi patterns came from that. You know, like doing a no beat cascade came from liking no beats and sending one no beat back and forth between my hands and liking how that felt and noticing that there was space in there. So playing kind of aimlessly with one poi, I think, is one of the most valuable things you can do if you're trying to have ideas.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, watch some of the longer YouTube videos, and like to bring that back home. One of the things, in addition to what we were talking about earlier, that make that like older style of videos, like the long tech blog. One of those things that they do is they show you they can carry themes better, you know, and instead of being a quick dopamine hit of like, wow, that person's cool and let's scroll to the next thing, it's like, oh, I can see how that person explores concepts and ideas. And the longer video and with tech blogs especially, you get to see how a person is forming a trick or a move or whatever, a pattern. It's because they took this one idea and then they expanded on it, or they applied something else somewhere. And, you know, Kaden and I we have like a video series of an homage to one of those techniques in practicing. It's called First You Take a Concept, and we have like these different videos that are all devoted to that idea of you take one sort of arbitrary box of limitations, and you say, okay, this is what I want to explore. I want to explore only this one pattern, or only this one like style of a toss or whatever. And then how can we see what's possible just within that box? And I think that's where creativity really thrives. And yeah, so that's one thing, is to get better. And one practice technique, like recommendation I would make, is give yourself arbitrary limits, and within those explore your creative boundaries. And yeah, just follow concepts to your heart's desire. And yeah, think of it as discovery too. I think when I look at poi moves, or like tricks as people call them, I don't think of them as being invented. I think of them as being discovered. It will give you frame them that way, you'll have more of a spirit of collaboration and of exploration, and less of like land grabbing and sort of like accomplishment for your own value, your own sense of value.
That's awesome. So yeah, like just play around and experiment, and people will notice.
Explore,
Yeah.
be curious.
That's what I notice. Kind of the thing, you know, when I do what we all do, which is like load up Instagram and like scroll through all the cool stuff. Largely what I'm noticing isn't things that are difficult, but things that I haven't seen before.
That's very true.
Yeah, that's what
Things that just stick out, things that are unique.
Yeah, that's what I care about, because like I'm impressed when I see people run 5 poi, but like the idea of 5 poi
It's a thing
has
already.
been there. Like before anyone could do 5 poi, people
Right.
knew that the idea of 5 poi
And you had wrestling.
existed.
Doing
Yeah,
5 meteor.
you had that too. Yeah, yeah, but you know, there are things that I see people do with 1 poi that I'd never seen before that gives me way more satisfaction and gives me way more motivation to go and explore.
Isn't it crazy how you could see a concept, someone can do a concept or do a small little trick or a move that's never been, for the most part, seen or done, and you see it and you're like, how did everybody not already think of that?
Yeah.
It's like this obvious thing, and then once it's available to people, there's another reason why you should collaborate and post videos, I think, is because if one person can see one little trick, and that can inspire a whole new, like, section of new poi moves. Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree. I'm looking for, I like when I see stuff, it can be the smallest little thing, but if it's a newish concept, it's like, it's fresh feeling. It just feels fresh.
Yeah.
That's my rule for, like, if I'm making a tech blog, for example, I'll go to EJC and I want to make the yearly, like, EJC Poi collab video, right? I set up the camera and I say, all right, guys, get in front of there and do stuff in front of the camera. I'm going to edit it into the video if I've never seen it before. And that's my rule. And I feel in a position to do that because I've done the due diligence. And this is another, like, a less romantic part of it, but doing the due diligence that it takes to, and it's more now, and the time investment is just growing.
Yeah, it's
but
almost impossible.
You got to
now.
know what is out there before you know, okay, what I'm doing actually is a new concept that people haven't explored yet. And that takes time. You know, you got to watch a lot of videos and you got to practice those things, and learning those explorations, those creative explorations that other people have done is going to be an exercise for your own creative exploration. I've seen people get trapped in, like, the recycling and just, you know, learning other people's moves. I don't want to say it like it's theirs, but only practicing things that have already been done. And that's okay. You can do that, and that's totally awesome.
Yeah, and it's also important for its
Yeah.
own reasons. Yeah.
And you're not going to,
Very true.
on that, you're not going to be asked to, like, come and be an instructor at an event, or, yeah, it's not quite the same as saying, like, okay, I've done the due diligence, I know what the landscape is, and I'm going and adding to it. I'm aware of what's in the pot, and I'm putting my piece in the pot.
There's something attractive about creation rather than imitation.
Yes.
Like imitation and perfecting something can be appreciated, but if someone does one new toss with one poi, it's more, at least in my mind, more appreciated than, like, seeing someone do a no-beat cascade. Even though I can appreciate that the time and the effort that was put into the no-beat cascade, if someone's doing some weird throw variation with one poi and catching it in a weird position, it's like you had to actively put effort into figuring out how this thing works and figuring out the pieces of the puzzle and how it all ties together.
And I love convergent discovery, when, like, somebody discovers something on their own, even though they never saw it, that it had already been done before. Because I give that person just as much credit. They're like, if they genuinely did it on their own, and they may want to, like, take credit for themselves. I think that game of, like, where does the credit belong is kind of dangerous. But if you discovered something on your own, that is awesome, and you'll know better for your own sake and for the sake of, like, collaboration and the community and, like, upholding kind of lexicon of moves and techniques. You'll know that better, and you'll know what you're doing more if you've already done the legwork and you like, know what's out there. So
Absolutely. And that's a lot of why that linguistic shift from making versus discovering a move is important too. It's like, people, you know, the history of science is littered with cases of people across the continent or across the world from each other discovering the same thing.
separately,
Yeah.
microwave background radiation, a lot of stuff was discovered like that.
Well, I think we kind of hit a lot of points. I think that was good.
I think
that's kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I mean, is there anything? What else? Do you guys want to say anything else? Anything else we should talk about real quick?
Chris's poi are good.
I like poi.
Buy
should buy them.
Things on Strings.
Should buy them.
This episode is brought to you by Things on Strings, the leading brand of contact poi in the world.
Buy the best from the best.
Yeah. Chris is my friend
shit.
now. I was not always my friend. I didn't know. There were points in my life when I didn't know you.
We did become friends.
We did become friends at a certain point. And before that point, I still thought your poi were the best in the world.
Ooh.
There we go.
Dang.
Okay, well, that was remember to do it again but better. and stay in school, don't do drugs, and bathe.
Yeah, and don't eat sugar.
You can eat sugar, just don't become so addicted to sugar like me. And brush your teeth. That's a good one. That's the most important one, is brush your teeth. All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.